see King Peter the First himself.
It's all.
Nismo svi još. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this very humble house, which I always take as a good example of the approach of King Peter I. That was very important. He was a very modest guy. He was a guy of the people, from the people. Because you see, the Serbian medieval dynasties, the famous ones, the Ottomans were very particular to eradicate them all. They were even take so much effort that they were digging them out from the graves, destroying their physical evidences. Just like they did with Saint Sava, who was also a member of that most famous Nemanjići Serbian royal dynasty. Why they were doing so? Because they were afraid that some of these bloodlines might survive, and maybe those people, when they grow up big and self-aware, will become the new leaders of the countries, and they will guide people into the rebellions, mutinies, and eventually cause a lot of problem for the Ottoman Empire. And from a very pragmatic point of view, they didn't want that to happen. And unfortunately, they did this job only too well. So basically, we were lost with all our medieval royal bloodlines. There is a rumor, some disputes among the scholars, that some of that bloodline actually remained in today's Russia, but it is still a big question. So in the early 19th century, George Petrović, who was born right here in this county, basically, he was the founder of the Karađorđević Serbian royal dynasty that we talk about. He was ordinary man, just like you and me. There was no blood connections from the previous bloodlines from medieval time. So he didn't have that in a way burden or the legacy. I apologize. And so he was just elected, as I said, in the coach in that nearby village of Orašac, when people gathered to talk about, like, okay, we started a rebellion, but we need somebody to lead it. And he was just a natural born leader, because he was already proven himself as a skilled warrior. He was a left-handed, so he was very good with his sword, with his rifle, with his musket, with his pistols, everything. He was huge. He was all 6.1, 6.2 feet tall, so quite a giant for his time. And just a prominent figure and a natural born leader, and that's why people elected him. So he was a man of the people, and people chose him. And he accepted that, and he was declared as the leader in Orašac, and that's how everything starts in 1804. And he was so successful, actually, he liberated such a big parts of our country that the Ottomans, the Turks, start to call him the Black George or the Dark George. Because he meant trouble for him. The name in Turkish language for dark or black is Kara. So Karađorđe, the Black George, the bad guy. For them, it was very bad. For us, it was very good. It was like a Robin Hood of Serbia, basically. Later, the next members of his family took his nickname and the name George or George, and the Black George, Karađorđe, to become the last name of the family. Because everybody knew him, everybody knew who he was, what he did, and how important he was. And everybody else, starting from Prince Alexander Karađorđević, they became Karađorđević, or we are of the Black George, we are the Black Georges. And that's how the last name came to be. And then we have his son. So we have the Black George himself. We will see him in the church. We have his son, Prince Alexander. Then the son of the Prince Alexander is actually King Peter I. And This is his mother, Persida, the mother of King Peter I, so they were husband and wife. Then they had King Peter, and King Peter I's son is King Alexander I, Karađorđević, and King Peter was known as the liberator, King Alexander as unificator. And then he had, with his wife Maria, that Romanian princess that he got married, also 3 kids. And interestingly, he gave him the names, the 3 typical names that were typical for Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia. Peter, by the grandfather, always by the grandfather, Tomislav, and Andrew, to pay respect to all 3 nationalities that now are part of that one country. And conveniently enough, they got three sons too, so they can do so. And this is them when they were younger. Princess Helen, Prince George, and Prince Alexander. And Alexander is the one who actually became the king, and Prince George became, after the assassination of King Alexander, the regent. Their uncle, he became the regent because the country lost the king. And the youngest son of Maria and Alexander was underage, so that's why the uncle was in head of the state until he turned 18, and his name was also Peter, named by Peter I. And when he turned 18, he became a king of Yugoslavia, but as King Peter II. Later, after the war, he emigrated into the United States, and he died in Libertyville near Chicago, and he was buried in the Christian Orthodox Church of Saint Sava over there, and recently in 2013 returned back home. But more of that we will talk about later. Here also I want to show you, interestingly enough, of that last king of our country, King Peter II, came Prince Alexander II, who again gets his name from his grandfather that just looks across the wall, which is King Alexander I. He also had 3 sons. And 2 of them are already married, and I think it was 2014 or 15, we had a first royal wedding in the same church where King Peter I was coronated after over a century. It's not a big villa or mansion or, hacienda, whatever. And King Peter, as he was getting very old, he had a problem with osteoporosis. He was spending more and more time here. This is where he felt more comfortable, and also he wanted to overlook the construction of the church of Saint George that is just opposite to the house, because he knew how important emotionally, historically, and traditionally it is important for us, because the tradition that I believe I was mentioning, but if I'm not, I will say it now, of the all Serbian rulers in our entire history was to build at least one monastery or a church as their foundation or a legacy of to the people and to the God who gave them the earthly right to rule a certain land and its people. So these traditions were broken when we were devoured by the Ottoman Empire. So of course it was not possible. He was the first one who got the opportunity to restart this ancient tradition of ours, building the church, because that was his ticket to the heavens, if you like, and that was the homage that he pays to the Almighty, who gave him the earthly right to rule again our people and our country. Here also are some paintings of the old King Peter or Uncle Pete from that have been taken in the time of the First World War, which was one of the most difficult periods for the Serbian people. We lost 1/3 of entire population. In percentage, that's the largest loss in the modern history of warfare. 1.3 million people. And he was all the time with his people and with the army that was unfortunately retreating across the Albanian Cursed Mountains. That's how they actually called Cursed Mountains, to the Adriatic coast, to be picked up by Allied ships and take to safety so that we can recover and not to be obliterated by the coming Austrian, German, and Bulgarian army that also turned sides, and they attacked us from the back as the Germans and the Austrians were approaching from the north. And and that was the Serbian Dunkirk, before the Dunkirk that nobody knows about. And there were the Allied ships standing in the distance, and we were hoping that they are going to pick us up, but they didn't. They said, we are not going to do so, it's too risky, underwater mines, submarines of Austrians and Germans and patrolling. And then one interesting event happened, because the Romanov dynasty of Imperial Russia and Karađorđević dynasty were very, very close, and they considered like very close friends, and so the countries. Even much before the war, Russia pledged that if Serbia is attacked by any of the big powers of Europe, Russia will intervene. And when the moment came, and Russia did, when Austria declared war upon Serbia, they declared war against Germany and Austria. And that's how they entered the First World War. But when we came to this moment where our army, quote, almost 200,000 soldiers are sitting on the beaches over there, nobody wants to pick them up, they sent a telegram to the British and the French government saying, if you don't pick up the Serbian army and take it to safety with all risks that you might have, we will make unilateral arrangements with the Germans and we will withdraw from the conflict. And only then our army was picked up and sent to Corfu Island in Greece, where it was recovering. Thousands of people died over there from tuberculosis, lack of nutrition and everything that they got previously during that treacherous journey. It was a winter time, etc. And then they have been refitted, rearmed. Woodrow Wilson, a good friend of Serbia, President of the United States, understanding, because he was a good friend of Michael Pupin, a great scientist who was his contemporary man, who explains him the situation, and 10,000 American volunteers came to fight along with the Serbian side, and a couple of hundred of field nurses to help the wounded and the injured soldiers. So this is something that, which is the reason why of the newest and the most beautiful boulevards in Belgrade, now recently built in the Belgrade waterfront, is called the Boulevard of Woodrow Wilson. Here you can see also the coronational moment of King Peter I in that gathering church in the Belgrade city, and some old photos, enlarged of course, of that moment. Here in this room, there are also some of the remaining artifacts of the royal dynasty. Many of them have been stolen during the Nazi occupation. One of them that is temporarily, I believe, in Israel. Oh no, it's not. It's back. Oh, wonderful. I will explain you about it very soon. But what I wanted to say, 90% of the belongings of the royal family have been stolen, and they're God knows where today in some private collections and other stuff worldwide. This sword is a gift, is a wedding gift to King Alexander by the Romanian king, who was the father of Queen Maria, and he also gave him the scepter. Pardon me. The scepter was the gift of the Roman king. So many details. By the Romanian king, and this was built in Bosnia to the king liberator Alexander with rubies and diamonds. This sword for him. And this is the only tiara in our possession. Tiara is what the princess or the queen is wearing. She had several tiaras. All of them are not in our possession, unfortunately, except this golden tiara. And over here also some of her personal belongings. This is a Fabergé frame for picture, and also with her initials, Maria, Queen Maria, the small chest for her jewelry. Also decorated in silver and gold, and you can see why he was so much in love with her. She was very, very beautiful woman, really of a royal standing, and very progressive for her day. She was driving a car. We knew that she was stealing the car. She got a Rolls-Royce convertible from her aunt, Queen Victoria, because they had that royal blood connection. And then she would sneak out and drive the Belgrade streets and said, milady, but you cannot go without the entourage. You need to have, I mean, you're a queen. He said, somebody needs to go. So, and like it's dangerous, etc. I said, no. If I don't show to our women that women can drive a car, how they would know that they can also drive a car? And let me tell you something. My great-grandmother was one of the first women in Yugoslavia, Kingdom of Yugoslavia, that got a chauffeur license, and her first car was Ford Model T. Yes. Yes. So thank you, my dear queen. Now in this last room, also some of the very, very interesting and rare photos of King Peter as a very old at this time, and some of the photos of the construction of the church that we are just about to visit. And this is the item that I was mentioning just before, and I was referring to it. This is a Last Supper made of mother of pearls from Jerusalem. Early 20th century. It was a wedding gift when the Queen Maria became Queen of Yugoslavia and married our King Alexander. In 1936, if I'm not wrong, there was one of the Nazi officials, as a German, Nazi Germany, of course. They came to Yugoslavia in the official visit. I mean, they were the country, the war was still not on, so of course you need to make communication with everybody and etc. And Goering was in this German delegation, and they were in a couple of days, and they were showing some of the things and stuff like that, and he saw this, and then he whispered to some of his trusted men, when we deal with these guys, I want this in my collection. And then it really ended up in the Goering's personal collection. And later, after the liberation of the West Europe and Germany, when they found the lair and the stash where he kept everything, of course we sent the official note and it was found. And then it was returned to the country after the Second World War, and one of the very precious and rare pieces that we have here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will leave the house, or we will go like this, to the left and then to the left again around the house, and then we will come in front of the church and we will walk straight to it and inside.
Okay. Lead the way.
Yeah.